A self-aware circuit. What happens when a pattern recognizes itself? Douglas Hofstadter explored this idea in his groundbreaking book, I Am a Strange Loop. His video feedback imagery is a delightful way of thinking about the universe contemplating itself, a universal consciousness which we are each a part of, the pool in which we swim. Every moment we see evidence of connections that are beyond our physical world, not just with the mysteries of quantum entanglement, but with intuition, synchronicity, entrainment, empathy, and much more. Genes communicating to each other across space-time are threading us together in what famed atheist and biologist Richard Dawkins once described as a river out of Eden. Dawkins also coined the term memes and told us the word rhymes with teams, which back when I started this project was still not a well-known term. Nowadays, people think of memes as any internet craze, often something silly or outrageous. Dawkins was thinking about how ideas can be transmitted across time and space, replicating themselves much the way genes do. In my first book, I talked about how the society of mind that Marvin Minsky used to describe the competing and cooperating mental processes that combine to create conscious awareness can be thought of as a system of memes that rise and fall to dominance within our minds. We are drawing a picture here of all probabilities, this one springing into self-awareness, developing a desire to continue on its world line as it chooses one possible future over another. While human consciousness is often the focus in these discussions of the observer function, I would say we're really just talking about life. Life, like consciousness and everything else in the universe, adheres to the infinitely scalable field equations of Maxwell. So our number one, our point, is riding waves within the quantum fields of probabilistic outcomes, surfing through the possibilities of Everett's many worlds. Erwin Schrödinger described life as a process which creates pockets of negative entropy. The idea that life is actively selecting different outcomes from the ones that may or may not have occurred purely through random uncertainty is, I would say, proof that all life has free will. We are not just helplessly observing inevitable outcomes that were set in motion at the beginning of the universe. We are actively choosing. Life, by choosing the paths that lead to continuance rather than death, is doing more than just going along for the ride as part of the self-excited circuit. Let's return to the startling idea that there is no shared objective reality. This takes us to local realism, which I started writing about in 2008 with a blog entry titled, Local Realism Bites the Dust. There are two components to local realism. First, quantum entanglement, which Einstein made fun of as spooky action at a distance, violates locality. Our intuition would tell us only local or nearby objects can affect each other. Entanglement proves otherwise. Second, realism speaks to our intuition that objects are there whether we are viewing them or not. Quantum physicists like Anton Zeilinger have proven again and again that our intuition is wrong and local realism is a myth. If the only thing that's really real for each of us is now, and everything else is an uncertain cloud of potential patterns, then we have a universe continually choosing one reality from out of the many possible ones. For life, at its fundamental level, those choices are about self-preservation, finding water, finding nutrients, trying not to be consumed. Not wanting to die can also be about finding wonder and beauty in the world, of course. Everybody needs some sunshine and lollipops in their life from time to time. And certainly, the less interested in what happens next we are, the closer we are to death. Maxwell showed us that everything about our reality is being created by two forces at right angles to each other. Modulating those two forces in the time domain creates the reality we are observing. This is a beautiful idea that starts with visualizing our universe as created from infinitely scalable spheres within hyperspheres, all within the ultimate ensemble, where information equals reality. We start with a point, and you are the point. You, as the universe, are surfing on a quantized wave created by your choice, chance, and the actions of others. Here's a quote from the Wikipedia article on Theodore Kaluza. Kaluza was primarily a mathematician, but began studying relativity. In April 1919, Kaluza noticed that when he solved Albert Einstein's equations for general relativity using 5 dimensions, then Maxwellian equations for electromagnetism emerged spontaneously. Kaluza wrote to Einstein, who in turn encouraged him to publish. Kaluza's theory was published in 1921 in a paper, my apologies for my bad German, Zum Unistatsproblem der Physik, with Einstein's support, in the publication Sitzenberg Fraubische Akademie der Wissenschaften. Despite Einstein's acceptance, the idea that our reality comes from the 5th dimension has been largely suppressed or dismissed as wistful speculation or science fiction for most of the last 100 years. I suspect it's not a coincidence that the criminalization of cannabis and psychedelics also began in the opening decades of the 20th century. It's not that the powers that be had to even be aware of the entanglement between those two ideas, the nature of the 5th dimension and the insights achieved through altered states, but both were not palatable to the policymakers of the time. Their preference, of course, has been to keep those beneath them from thinking any lofty thoughts, so alcohol consumption was encouraged, and mushrooms, DMT, LSD, and the rest became illegal. Despite those efforts, the psychedelics research community is finally coming back into its own. I'm grateful to David J. Brown, who was the first serious scientist to come forward and endorse my visualization as it relates to particular shapes and patterns seen in these altered states of consciousness. These ideas have been suppressed for a century. 46 years ago, I wrote a song to sing with my friends Terry and Kathy called It's Time You Woke Up. We go along for the ride as if we're never in control. We're always satisfied to be a stand-in at the show. It's time we woke up. It's time we spoke up. It's time we let them know exactly how we feel. Today, that song feels like a letter to myself and to the world. It's time we all woke up, and it's time for us to realize what's really going on. You have much more power over your reality than you've been led to believe. I'm with Plato on this one. He believed that what appears as learning is in fact remembering. We are all born full of this knowledge. In my first book, I wrote about the angels of possibility that swirl around a young child, like glowing balls of energy that are constantly shifting in and out from the extra dimensions. Psychedelics evangelist Terence McKenna describes a vision, or perhaps memory, of himself as a child of 5, playing with his toys and seeing glimpses of DMT stuff, swirling in and out of existence in the air around him, and knowing it was not a good idea to describe those things to his parents. I believe Hugh Everett III saw these same shifting possibilities way back in 1957 in his interpretation of quantum mechanics and its universal wave function. And of course, his ideas were suppressed and ridiculed by other scientists as part of the same disinformation campaign, which for the last 100 years has had the goal of suppressing transcendental knowledge within the masses.